In June of 1965, I graduated from high school. I was 17 years old, and like the rest of the guys in my class, I was anticipating a time when I would be contacted by my country's military to perhaps serve in Vietnam. The draft was something we all had hanging over our heads. Some of my classmates went to college, some got married, some joined the Guard, and some joined other branches of the military. One member of the class of '64 came home from Vietnam blind, and then one member of my class lost his life there in the Marines. After graduation, I took a job at a local pickle factory. I was driving fork truck and then mixing relish that, though I didn't know it, I would soon be eating in one of the Army's mess halls. But before I tell you that part of the story, let me tell you, I lived about 50 miles north of Detroit, and on my 18th birthday, I hired into Pontiac Motors, where, among other things, I assembled Pontiac engines 6 days a week and 10 hours a day. I bought a motorcycle and a car, and things seemed to be going well until spring of 1967, when I had to report for a military physical in Detroit. After which, I tried to join the Guard and the Navy, but that didn't work out. At the end of August, I was sworn into the Army at Fort Wayne, Detroit, and put on a train to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Shortly after arriving at Fort Knox, I was able to join the Army for an additional year in order to receive training as a hovercraft diesel mechanic. Additionally, the Army tried to recruit me as a helicopter pilot and messed with me for the next 2 years, dangling that carrot before I finally decided enough was enough. My parents and my brother were able to visit me during basic, and I was even able to travel to my mom's hometown, or childhood home in Frenchburg, Kentucky with them. After basic, it was another train ride to Fort Eustis, Virginia, the Army Transportation Training Center, where I took my advanced training. It was basic seamanship and lasted until around Christmas. We were then allowed to leave, and after we returned, I found that my engineers classes, along with the more advanced seamanship classes, had been canceled. We were given multiple choices as to where we would go. I chose the 504th MP Company as a mechanic. One of my friends got to go on a boat, and some others started training as MPs. I was in the MP Company when Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered. All leaves were canceled. I soon found myself wearing an MP armband and began riot training alongside my barracks mates who were MPs. Fortunately, things calmed down and I was soon able to go home on leave. This is when I was able to bring my car to base. Things were pretty good, so I also started attending on-base classes from Williams and Mary College, visited our nation's capital with my buddy Larry Grimes, and Larry and I started dating a couple local girls. Actually, Larry stayed on in Virginia after I left, and he married the gal he had been dating. Later, he went to Vietnam too, to Dong Tam in the 1099th as a landing craft mechanical operator. But to continue my story, my security clearance finally came through, so once again the Army offered helicopter training to me. But I was enjoying life at the time and was starting to settle in, so I procrastinated. That was a mistake, so soon after I got new orders. I was to ship out to a boat company in Vietnam early in summer of 1968. On my way home on leave, I wanted to stop in Columbus, Ohio to rekindle a relationship with a long-time girlfriend that I hadn't seen in a year or so. Unfortunately, at about 3:30 a.m., I was pulled over for speeding in a construction zone in Zanesville, Ohio, after being turned in by a patriotic Ohioan who probably saw my Michigan plate. Taken to Kangaroo Court, where they cleaned me out of almost all my money. My orders for Vietnam meant nothing to them. Consequently, I had to get a job when I got home to Pocus, and I was unable to visit my girlfriend who lived 50 miles away. So now ask me about how I feel about Ohio. However, not all was lost, and a year later I met my present life, and we have been married for over 50 years now. We have 2 children and 8 grandchildren. I shipped out from Fort Lewis, Washington. We landed in Bien Hoa, South Vietnam around July 1st, 1968. From there I went back and forth to Vung Tau and Saigon until they found my unit in Cat Lai, Detachment 3, 4th TC. After a couple of days, I made it to Y66, a 187-foot yard tanker. We started by carrying fuel from Na Bay to Dongtam in a Navy LST in the Mekong Delta. I worked as deckhand and manned the Port 50 on the flying bridge. Mostly my time aboard was uneventful, with the exception of running aground in the Mekong River while watching green tracers flying up towards a helicopter which was sending red tracers back down. This was my first trip on the tanker. August 11th, 1968, we were delivering fuel for Long Bend when the tug in front of us was hit by rockets. It was probably quite a sight to watch a 187-foot potential torch passing by a burning ammo barge. The tug's crew had some injuries, but no fatalities. I'm sure the PBR escorts helped to keep more rockets from flying that day. We continued to make more trips to the Delta, and in October, we started doing a round trip every other day from Na Bay to take fuel for Tan Son Nhut Air Base. I turned 21 years old and was promoted to Spec 4 during this time. December 1968, I was sent to Cat Lai as operator of J3685, a 36-foot pickup boat. I worked 24 on and 24 off, taking stevedores and paperwork to and from the 3 ammo ships moored in the river. While on duty, I ate and slept on the boat, only left to relieve myself or climb the tower to get the sea rats from the harbor masters. Occasionally, I would go out on patrol with my friend Gary Bees, who was from San Luis Obispo, California, and operated a PBR with the local MPs. February the 3rd, 1969, I was working as harbor shuttle in Saigon out of Camp Davies, BK Pier. I went on R&R to Maui, Hawaii with my buddy Gary Bees. When I got back, my boat had sunk. So I went to work as radio operator and later operations sergeant for my Harborcraft company. In June, I went home on leave before starting my second tour. After Tainan, I came back to Kojudo and stayed there until April when I went home. Cousin Dick got a chance to come down and visit me again, and then you can see the pictures here. When we got out of the Army, I was the best man at his wedding. And then there's a picture of us 30 years later. Unfortunately, joined the National Guards and went to Afghanistan, where I was training the Afghans in the early 2000s. I wasn't feeling well, came home back to Florida, and short Dick passed away of a heart attack. So I sure miss him. Rest in peace, my brother. Thanks for watching. Got out in April 1970. Got married a short time later. Now I have a lovely wife, 2 daughters, great son-in-laws, and 8 grandchildren. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. God bless.